Hello, and welcome to 5-Year Club video number 251. I was definitely not just watching a video on a new video game. I said the word video 17,000 times in that sentence. Instead of paying attention to the video, oh no, the new movie I'm gonna do. Alright, let's get this microphone in order. I spoke tonight with a friend from college who is beginning the process of a job hunt. And one of the things I tried to emphasize them when I was giving them advice about how to think about this was to not think about it like an ultimate fight. Not think about it like a wrestling match where a job hunt is you and one interview and one position, and it's a life or death outcome where your skills and talents as a person are defined by this one moment, by this one match. Not at all. Instead, a successful job hunt is really, it's a family affair. Sometimes literally. It involves a lot of different people, and the way that you go about it is, obviously there are things on a practical, personal level in terms of I need this kind of education to get this kind of job, or these are they require somebody with 6 years of experience at this certain type of job, so I shouldn't apply for that. There are, those technical things and knowing certain things like that, how much salary you're going to need, how much have you made before, or why would you expect an increase, blah, blah, blah. But from just a very raw level, what is the first thing a person should do if they want to be successful finding a job? And the very first thing that you want to do, before you think about all the specific details that are specific to yourself, you want to build a network of people. Let's highlight that. Build a network of people and build relationships with these people so they can help you find another job. Now, that doesn't mean that you're pushing this all on them and that they are responsible for helping you find a job. But something like 80% of jobs are acquired through a personal recommendation, in the sense that somebody within the company said, hey, I know a guy. And this doesn't mean that, I know a guy is their personal best friend. It's just someone literally who they kind of know. It's an acquaintance. And because, we know this is true, if you are that personal acquaintance because you have networked yourself into, that person's life and said, hey, I'm job hunting, then you are much more likely to get the position than if you are coming in cold. So the very first thing anybody should do thinking about this process is to think about what is their strategy to let people know that they're looking for a job. What's their strategy to have a network of people and to reach out to people who are potentially in the industry that they're looking at? So, for example, what volunteer opportunities might you have where people who are volunteering there would be in the industry you want to work in, or in the physical location, in the geography that you want to work in. So that's the first step, is having a network. You use that network to get information about the job that you're looking for, to get leads on potential jobs that you might apply for. You use it to get introductions to other people who might have leads, or other people who might know specific information that you need. Maybe even to get interviews at a company or at a place, or an interview at a place where you might be able to volunteer at, that would further lead to advancing your network. And then, of course, you get, advice, recommendations, opinions from these people. And I have first dates here. And why? Because what's crazy to me when I thought about it is how similar so many of these processes are. So the process of trying to sell something, you're going to go through this whole thing where you have a network of people who get the word out that you're selling a product, and eventually, you have a sales funnel where, I'm got to move to the center of the camera. you have a sales funnel where you may have like 50 people, 100 people going to the top of the funnel. And the top of the funnel in that case just means they're aware that your product even exists. And, you may have narrowed that 100 person list down to only 20 people in the sales process when you get to what would be called like a qualified lead, which is a business or a person who actually has the money and has the problem that you're solving, and has all these kind of requirements that you would need in order to successfully sell them your product. But so many of these different processes, whether it's dating or sales or job hunting or college applications or applying for scholarships, are these kind of funnel scenarios where you want to build a big network in order to have a large funnel of possible opportunities to solve whatever the problem is. And then you're going to work on the techniques and the specifics of how to get that large number of possibilities down to a smaller number that's more specific and that's going to work for you. So let's get back to the job hunting scenario, because that's the one that I talked about tonight. So you get, so through that network, you're going to get introductions, interviews, basically other connections with people and other specific interactions and events with people. You're going to use these interactions with people to learn more about how to interact with them, to learn more about how to get what you want, and to learn more about what you want. And, in this process of talking with people, you're going to leave some people with a very good impression. You're going to leave some people with a very bad impression. You're going to be accepted by some jobs that you don't want. You're going to be rejected by some jobs that you don't want. You're going to be rejected by some jobs that you do want. And the point of it all, and the takeaway from it, is that the rejection is not the problem. The rejection is not the tragedy of the situation. The rejection is an expected part of the process. It's just like if you want a crop to grow, you need rain. If you want to successfully apply for jobs, you need to get rejected from some jobs. Why? Because rejection in the context of applying for jobs is a feedback signal for what you need to change about how you're going about getting the job. And there will be some things that you need to change if you're going to grow as a person. And so going into the process of finding a job, if you're really stretching yourself to find a dream job that's really, because you want to stretch yourself. You want to go for a job that you're not quite sure you can do. You want to go for a challenging job. You want to go for a job that's so rewarding that you're not sure that you deserve it. And the only way that you're going to reach that job is if it's not comfortably within your grasp. You're going to need to change some things about yourself to be able to get that job. And the only way you're going to know what you need to change is by trying to get similar positions and then learning things that you did wrong when you tried to get them and learning things you need to change. And this can be, I think, a very difficult process, especially because with the litigation environment in the U.S., it can be difficult to get feedback from job interviews about how you did in the interview or why you were rejected or, what people thought of you. I have found it to be possible, though, if you go back and you ask them after the fact and you say, it would be extremely helpful for my personal development if you would give me some feedback in this area about, what's going on. So go into the process expecting rejection. In fact, I would say that just as a baseline, plan to fail at the first 10 interviews, the first 10 or 20 sales. Just expect that the fail is going to happen and be curious about why. And, you don't have to feel bad about it because it's a normal thing. But you do want to come out with specific, actionable, proactive things you can do after each failure to increase your chances on the next try. I'm the kind of person who will actually track this stuff. I'll write down every single one of them. And that lets me know systematically what improved on each attempt. And sometimes you'll think that you've solved a problem that you have, and you haven't. And you need to receive that feedback a second time. And that can be very frustrating, because then you're like, oh, come on. I thought, it's like I know that I do this and I'm still doing it wrong. And yeah, that happens too. And that doesn't mean that you're going to do it every single time in the future. It may mean that you do it 4 times when you only wanted to do it once, but you will eventually get the message. Overall, you may go through, say, 10 just abject interview failures in a job process, and then the next 9 may be a mix of half failure, or you realize you just didn't want the job, or or somebody else was hired for the position even though they liked you. But when you think about any of these processes, I would say at a very minimum, the total number of kind of attempts needs to be at least 20 going into it. Obviously that expands to more if you do 20 and you don't get anything. But at the very beginning of the process, don't plan for anything less than 20 trials, 20 attempts. That's the scale that you need to think on. That's the number of things you need to mentally prepare yourself to go in for. If you prepare yourself for less than that, then you're going to get very discouraged too early in the game. You're going to get discouraged after being rejected from 5 jobs. And that is that's not very many applications. That's not very many interviews. So you need to think about it as it's a statistical process, really. And so you need to get enough attempts that you can start to see a pattern emerge. And only 5 attempts, 5 trials, 5 interviews, 5 whatever you want to call it, it's not enough. It's just too difficult to see any kind of statistical trend out of only 5 things. So you need to start out with 20. You can even scale it up to 50. I suspect that anybody who thinks about applying to 50 things, if they're really putting effort and then evolving the way they apply to each thing over time, you're not going to make it to 50. You're going to be successful at something that moves you forward before you hit the 50th thing. All right, another part of the process is, rejection is going to happen, and we can anticipate that that's going to happen. Rejection, even though it's part of the learning process, it still doesn't feel good. And so we can anticipate that we're not going to feel good about it. We need to do something in our life to prevent that rejection and prevent those bad feelings from really getting to us, because we can predict them. There are many ways to do this. For me, exercise and reading books is a popular thing, actually listening to audiobooks. I believe biographies of successful people because, when you read about successful people, it surrounds you with a reality of if you work for this, you will achieve it. Because these people have already achieved a lot, and you kind of know the conclusion of the story on a lot of these biographies, and they were very successful, and everyone loved them. The end. But yeah, if you throw yourself into this process, especially at the beginning when you're getting rejected all the time, and you don't have any plan to remain positive, and you don't have any plan to emotionally backstop yourself, it's not a surprise when you get discouraged, and it's your fault. Because that discouragement could have been predicted, and it could have been hedged against it. You could have pushed back against it earlier. You could have proactively put something in place to counteract it, but you didn't. But you're watching this video now, and I'm telling you, you're going to have to do something to keep yourself positive. So have a game plan for that. Write it down. Know what the game plan is. And expect the rejection to come. And finally, reaching the end of it, reaching my final point of tonight, is that throughout our lives, we're going to encounter these statistical kind of processes. We're going to encounter these scenarios where we need to accomplish something, and it's unrealistic for us to, and unproductive for us to expect to succeed in it in the first 5 times that we try at it. And it's also unproductive to send out cold requests for any of these things. We need to do all of these through a network. We need to regularly connect ourselves with other people so that we have people that we can ask for advice from, so that we can give advice to other people when they need that help. And so that, throughout our life we have warm relationships that are mentioned in that Triumphs of Experience Harvard Grant Study book that I've talked about before. And you're going to see differences throughout your life when you approach all of these different things. You're going to see differences in the way that you would approach sales versus the way that you would hunt for a job versus the way that you would apply for different kind of grant monies for some kind of community project or, whatever it is. And over time, you're going to learn more about the different planning processes and the different statistics in different areas in terms of like how many applications you would send out and what kind of chances of success you would get and how bad things are going to feel and what the expectations are in these different areas. And this is going to impact how you plan for these. So it's going to impact kind of like how many things do you prepare at the beginning of this process for yourself. Another example is fundraising if you start a company. If you start a company, you're not going to go to one person and ask for the money in the ideal case. In the ideal case, when you start a company, if you don't have the money right there to start the company, if you're going to use funding from other people, it's the same thing as these other processes. You're going to start out with a funnel of potential investors at the top. And then you're going to need to narrow that funnel down to, I guess, what you could call a qualified investor. Somebody who actually invests in the area where you're developing technology or where you're starting a business. Somebody who has the money to invest to actually help you get off the ground. And then you're going to go for fundraising and you're going to talk to people about your business and they're going to ask you some questions that you don't expect and you're going to give bad answers to those questions and they're not going to invest money in your company. They're going to reject you. And you're going to learn over time better answers to those questions. Both better answers because they're true and better answers because they sound better. But if you're not willing to go through this process of adjustment and of rejection, then you're not going to be able to accomplish these things that you want in life. And if you're not able to see these processes as statistical processes, where you're starting with a big population of opportunities, and then you're learning to adjust and change and learn from them over time until you optimize yourself to success and you optimize yourself to reaching a goal, then you're not going to be able to accomplish many of the things that you want. Because this is just the way life works. You're not going to win every single game. You're not going to win every single battle, but you can win the war as long as you plan out the campaign ahead of time and as long as you are deliberate about developing all the opportunities that you need in terms of interactions, and then also being open to feedback from those interactions to change the way that you're approaching things so that you can find some success. While at the same time, handle your shit. Like, anticipate rejection and have a game plan for feeling good about your life, because we are definitely going to have some rainy days. I hope that was helpful. I hope that this, whatever process you're in, if it's a job hunt or if it is trying to find a good partner or if it is applying for grant monies or whatever it is, there are really practical things you can do to move forward in this process. Many times those practical things are about this high-level planning, though, around having a network and just getting, they call it deal flow. If you're an investor looking for a good investment opportunity, you need to get enough opportunities moving through your pipeline that you actually have something that you want to close in a reasonable amount of time. And there are practical ways for you to develop a large number of opportunities that you can then try to work against. But if you don't even begin by thinking of this as a network building problem, you're not going to get enough introductions, interviews, recommendations, first dates, or whatever, so that you are successful in a reasonable amount of time. And so that's the thrust of tonight's video, is to not think about these processes as in like how many advertisements in a newspaper can I look at tonight. That's not the problem. The problem is, how big is the network of people who are looking to help you find what you need? This is how you're going to get to the solution. All right, well, that is it for 5-Year Club video number 251. I hope it was helpful. There are certainly other resources. What Color Is Your Parachute is an excellent job hunting book. And there's other people with excellent advice online about going through these things. If you read books on sales funnels, that can also help you get kind of an idea of this general process. I've found them to be very interesting. But that's it for video number 251. Have a fabulous evening.